The world wasn't watching, but they should have been. Deep in the heart of Burkina Faso, a silent war had begun, not of guns or bombs, but of contracts, signatures, and stolen futures. On paper, it was just a mining deal. In reality, it was the auctioning of a nation's soul. Ibrahim Traoré sat alone in his office, files open before him, documents showing how one multinational company, backed by foreign powers, was draining gold and lithium from their soil, leaving only scars behind. Alton Resources, he whispered, the name burning his tongue. On the surface, they were investors. In truth, they were looters. For decades, Burkina Faso's riches fed Western markets while its people stayed poor, its children uneducated, its lands poisoned. But now, the young president had drawn a line. Traoré knew canceling the contracts would trigger chaos. But he also knew this: freedom isn't free. And if no one else would protect the nation's inheritance, he would. Foreign embassies started calling, then threatening. This move will destabilize the region, warned one diplomat. You'll lose everything, said another, but Traoré didn't flinch. In the streets of Ouagadougou, murals of his face appeared overnight. Farmers, students, ex-soldiers, they all whispered the same name. Some called him mad. Others called him Moses, but none could deny something was shifting, something big. And the empire had noticed. Behind closed doors in Paris, London, and Washington, strategy meetings ignited. Sanctions were drafted. Media outlets received instructions. Discredit him. Paint him as a dictator. Back in Burkina Faso, Traoré held emergency meetings with village elders, trade unions, and student leaders. If we don't fight for our land, he said, then who will? The room was silent. Then a voice rose from the back. We're with you, whatever comes. That night, Traoré walked the palace halls alone. Not with fear, but with resolve. Outside, a storm gathered. Thunder cracked like gunfire. Inside, he drafted one final letter. Effective immediately, it read, all foreign mining operations under Alton Resources are suspended. A national audit begins at dawn. He signed it, sealed it, and looked out into the dark. Let them come, he said softly. We are ready. By morning, the news had exploded. International outlets scrambled. Traoré nationalizes mines. Chaos in West Africa? But on the streets of Bobo Dioulasso, people cheered. Miners wept. For the first time, they believed the gold beneath their feet might feed their families, not Swiss banks. In a village school, a teacher pinned his photo beside the flag. This, he said, is what courage looks like. The world watched in confusion. But the people? They finally felt seen. Alton's board met in emergency session. Their CEO slammed a fist on the table. This child thinks he can rob us? Shareholders panicked. Stock prices wavered. But more dangerous than the money was the message. If Burkina Faso could reclaim its wealth, who might follow? Congo? Niger? Mali? The chain reaction terrified them. Empire wasn't built on guns alone, it thrived on silence. And Traoré had just broken it. That night, hackers launched a cyber attack on the National Bank. Electricity cut out in parts of the capital. A planned protest funded by civil society NGOs grew violent. But Traoré was ready. He went live on state TV. They will try to break us. Not with bullets, but with whispers, rumors, dollars. But we know who we are. And we know what they fear, an African nation that thinks for itself. The broadcast went viral. And the mask was slipping. At a press briefing in Brussels, a journalist asked bluntly, "Is the West afraid of Traoré?" A diplomat smirked. No, just concerned for regional stability. But beneath the calm tone, alarms were blaring. Burkina Faso had just canceled a $1.2 billion extraction contract. Overnight, no debate, no compromise. In war rooms, analysts asked the unthinkable, what if this works? Because if it did, the whole game might change. In a dusty border village, an old man sipped tea and smiled. I haven't seen hope like this since Sankara, he said. Youths gathered around him. They won't let him win, will they? One asked. The old man shook his head. No, they'll fight dirty. But they've already lost one thing, our fear. Somewhere far away in a whitewashed boardroom, a nervous advisor whispered, maybe it's time we found a replacement. The battle wasn't over. It had just begun. An anonymous memo leaked online. A foreign intelligence agency had held talks with high-ranking officers inside Burkina Faso's army. The document vanished within hours, but not before millions saw it. Twitter exploded. Coup coming? Read headlines. But Traoré wasn't silent. He met the troops on camera. If I fall, let it be in the arms of my people. Not in exile, not in shame. The crowd erupted. No uniform moved. For now. At a luxury hotel in Accra, power brokers gathered. Oil men. Diplomats. Retired generals. One question circled the cigars and bourbon. How do you break a man who doesn't fear death? They didn't want war. They wanted obedience. Traoré offered neither. A British envoy muttered, we could cut their internet, trigger unrest. Another replied, too messy. Find someone inside, someone close. The hunt for a Judas had begun. In Ouagadougou, a childhood friend of Traoré's, now a rising politician, was called for a meeting. They offered him money, security, even asylum. You'll be a hero, they said. You'll save your country from madness, he smiled politely. The next morning, he walked straight into Traoré's office and spilled everything. The betrayal never happened. But the warning was clear. They were inside the walls now. Outside, foreign media doubled down. Traoré losing grip. Crackdown imminent. But inside Burkina Faso, something else was happening. Farmers donated tools. Artists painted murals. Soldiers trained schoolboys in first aid. It wasn't propaganda. It was unity. One journalist dared to report it. Her station pulled the story. Her editor warned her, this isn't just about Africa anymore. This is about the system unraveling. Then came the package. No return address. A USB stick. Just one video. Traoré in a meeting. His voice calm, the room quiet. But the subtitles told another story doctor to twist his words into threats. It hit social media like wildfire. Within hours, Western news outlets ran with it. But Traoré's team had proof, the real footage. They uploaded it with one line. They lie because they fear him. The people didn't blink. But the world? It started to squirm. In Washington, a senator looked up from his briefing. This guy's not folding. Sanctions aren't enough. A lobbyist replied, he's rallying Africa. If this spreads, we lose control of 5 countries. Silence. Then came the real question. What if Traoré doesn't fall? What if he wins? It wasn't a fear of one man. It was fear of the example he set. A free Africa, charting its own course without asking permission. Meanwhile, in a dim conference room in Abidjan, a plan took shape. Operation Silence. A targeted media blackout. Censored hashtags. Payments to influencers. The goal: erase Traoré from the algorithm, starve his story. But it backfired. Users noticed. The more they censored, the more people searched. In trying to delete him, they made him viral. A ghost in the feed. Unstoppable. Unignorable. Traoré stood before a sea of supporters, miners, mothers, students. They want our gold, our silence, our chains. He raised his fist. But we choose truth. We choose dignity. Even if it costs us everything. It wasn't just a speech. It was a declaration. Cameras rolled. And for the first time, networks that once ignored him broadcasted live. Not out of sympathy. Out of fear they'd miss history. In a Paris boardroom, a CEO watched the feed. His investors were nervous. Contracts stalled. Is it time to negotiate? Someone asked. He didn't answer. He just stared at Traoré's face. How did this happen? Simple. They underestimated the man. They thought he was a placeholder, a phase, but Traoré had become something else, a mirror, reflecting every lie the empire told itself. And so the struggle continues, not with tanks but with truth, not with bullets but with belief. Traoré walks among his people not as a savior but as one of them, a man who dared to say no when the world demanded silence. And whether he stands or falls, the echo of his defiance will outlive him. Subscribe now, because this isn't politics. It's the rebirth of resistance. Comment: what if Africa no longer asks but decides?